is Mystery Meat's Fine Dining Podcast, helping foodies discover new restaurants and new friends. Here's your host, the founder of Mystery Meat, Seth Ressler.
Hello, and welcome to Mystery Meat's Fine Dining Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Ressler, and this is the podcast where we talk to local experts, local food bloggers, local writers, and get their restaurant recommendations, have them tell us a little bit about their city, everything you need to know if you're a foodie. And today we are going to Portland, Oregon. We're going to talk to Jackie Morrow, who runs a dining group called Restaurant Roulette. We're going to ask her a little bit about her dining group, and she's going to tell us all about the city of Portland. We're going to get a restaurant recommendation from her, and then we're going to play Out of the Frying Pan. So Jackie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Tell me a little bit about Restaurant Roulette. Tell me about this dining group, how it started, what you're doing with it, because I think it's a really cool concept.
All my life, I've sort of been into going out to eat and sampling new restaurants. So I decided that I would start a group of people I didn't necessarily know and see if there were other people like me that wanted to go out to eat on a semi-regular basis to a different restaurant each time. And so what I did is I posted an ad in Craigslist, and I did find some more people like me.
So the people that come, are these people that you knew beforehand, or is this something where you've met a bunch of new people by doing this?
Basically, these were all strangers, and I've had a gigantic variety of people. Some people, they're about 80 years old. You know, I have people in their 20s, people in their 30s. I have doctors, I have lawyers, I have salespeople, you know, the whole economic spectrum. I've met a lot of really interesting people.
So I love this because I feel like this is something that we have lost in modern society. You know, that there was a point at which the meal was something where people sat down and they really came together and had great conversation and even met new people. And more we're moving to the place, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody else, where we eat dinner in front of the TV, or, you know, we eat a meal in front of the computer or in our car and things like that.
Right.
So it's nice to have that opportunity to really get together with other people. There's nothing better than a great meal with great company.
Most of the people that come once want to come again because, you know, there's no pressure like to find a date or to fit in, because it's food centered. It's all about the food. And then, you know, while you're concentrating on your food, of course, you'll have some nice conversation and perhaps you'll loosen up and, you know, then you'll start to feel better.
Yeah, and that's what I love about events like this. And this is similar to the Mystery Meat dinner parties that we hold, that, you know, so many of the social events out there, either they're singles events and they're about dating, and so you feel all this pressure, or else they are sort of business networking, exchange your business card kind of events. And when you get a great event like this, it's just people who come together and they all love food and they all talk about food. And it tends to make for a much more relaxed and enjoyable atmosphere, I think, than a lot of other kind of social meetups that you can go to over the internet. And I think that makes them just a lot of fun.
Well, yes, and you know, people are a little suspicious at first because you never know what you'll find on a place like Craigslist, and they'll think, well, you know, is this a secret dating thing or is there a scam? But usually people show up and then they do see that there is no social pressure whatsoever.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's talk about the city of Portland. Portland, Oregon. You know, if I'm a foodie and I'm coming to Portland for the very first time, what is your city known for?
Food carts, for sure. For the last couple of years, we've had hundreds of food carts. Everyone has a food cart, and a lot of them have very good food. You know, you can go to a food cart pod, and there can be like 15 or 20 food carts there, and many of them will have a cuisine from a different country. You spend $10, you know, and you can get some food from Salvador or Mexico or Thailand or Germany. So that's really been a big thing the last couple of years. And many of those food carts have now transitioned into real restaurants. So obviously, if it's a restaurant that came from a food cart, you're probably going to still find relatively inexpensive food, which is nice.
You know, we were talking earlier, and you also said that there is a very strong farm-to-table, or I guess you called it farm-to-fork movement. Tell me a little bit about that.
Basically, a lot of our food here is centered on what you can get fresh that day, that week, that month. And many of the restaurants have farms that they deal with that might be a mile or two away. Basically, the menus of a lot of the restaurants change a lot here.
And you've got a number of great chefs there in the city of Portland. And in fact, I didn't know this till you told me, one of the greatest chefs, perhaps the greatest chef, James Beard, is actually from the Portland area.
Yes, he's from Oregon, and I believe he spent a lot of time here, and that's the person that many of our chefs cite as their influence. Yeah, he's a guiding light in the Portland area as far as food.
Who are some of the other great chefs from the city?
We have Andy Ricker, who has marketed his Asian street food under the Pok Pok name, and that's one of the most popular restaurants in town, and he has actually opened a couple restaurants in New York City, and so he's branched out across the United States. Kathy Wims, she's always a nominee for the James Beard Award for the Best Young Chef. Chris Israel, he's another local famous chef. He has a restaurant called Gruner, which is an Alpine-centered restaurant. John Gorham, who started with a place called Toro Bravo, which was sort of a tapas sort of restaurant, and now he's branched out to a brunch place called Tasty and Sons. That is the kind of restaurant that the minute they open, every seat in the restaurant fills.
It sounds like you've got a lot. I mean, it sounds like there are some great chefs up there in the city of Portland.
I left one out. Capriel Pence, who had her own show on PBS, Cooking with Capriel and John. She was actually our original sort of famous chef after James Beard. And so she's been around for quite a while, but I better not leave her out because she's... Who else has a TV show?
So for a mid-sized city, Portland really has some high-quality chefs there.
Yes, we do.
Give me the overlay of the city. Give me the 5-cent tour. If there are a couple of dining districts that I need to know about, what are they?
Well, one is certainly the Alberta Arts District, which originally was a down-on-your-luck area that time had forgotten. And maybe 6 years ago, a lot of art galleries moved in, and then suddenly lots of restaurants moved in. And basically it's 15 blocks of small shops and galleries and restaurants, all kinds of different food, Southern, Spanish, Italian, Peruvian, Mexican, Indian, and many of these are some of the best restaurants in town.
It sounds like you're seeing a lot of revitalization there in Portland.
Yes. In fact, a lot of the restaurant rows, as you would call them, were basically old areas that sort of time forgot, and then one or two restaurants moved in. Suddenly you have a whole row of restaurants in a bunch of old rehab buildings. And so you have a lot of old architecture with really nice new restaurants inside.
That's kind of my favorite. I love places like that.
Right, that's my favorite too. So
what about some of the food events in Portland? You know, when are good times of year to check out the city and go to a great food event?
The Pacific Northwest is known for having a tad bit of rain during the year.
Little bit.
So it's probably best to come here during the summer if you want to not be inside. And the thing about Portland right now is the food scene is just so explosive that every single week you can go on the internet and you can find all these food events every single weekend. But during the summer, as I mentioned before, you have the farm-to-fork dinners with the local chefs making dinners at farms and wineries with the local cuisine. Those are really fun to go to.
I asked you for a specific restaurant recommendation. I said pick one, and you chose one that you actually hosted a restaurant roulette dinner at recently. So tell me a little bit about the restaurant you chose.
I chose a restaurant called Ox, which has only been open since, I believe, April. It's Argentine-inspired Portland food.
Well, what does that mean? What is Argentine-inspired Portland food?
The chef's wife is from Argentina, and she is also a chef. And so basically, I believe they took a lot of her family ideas and her family recipes, and then they cook them in a Portland way, meaning a lot of the local produce, and then cooking it in a way that you would find food from Argentina cooked.
Oh, that's very cool. Tell me a little bit about the chef. I mean, where's he from?
Greg Denton. The first place I knew of him was from a restaurant in the Pearl District called Metro Vino. It became famous for the great Northwest food that was coming out of the kitchen there. He basically took that restaurant from being a wine bar to a destination restaurant in Portland.
Very cool. So tell me about his new restaurant, Ox. I mean, when you walk in, what's the vibe like there?
The first thing you notice when you come in the door is it smells like a campfire in a good way. All the restaurant is centered around a gigantic wood-burning oven that was imported from Argentina. And so that's the first thing you smell when you come in is the burning wood and the cooking food. It just smells delicious.
Is this a place you need to make a reservation at well in advance?
Ox, you can only make a reservation if you have 6 or more people. You need to plan to go to Ox. Ox is a great restaurant, but you can't just say, oh, it's 7 o'clock on Friday night, I think we'll go to Ox. Because they've been so popular, they've actually opened a bar in the back of their space called the Way Bar.
So let's say I'm lucky enough to get a table at Ox. I sit down, I look at the menu. Where am I going for appetizers? What do you suggest?
Well, they have a grilled radicchio salad with a really mild goat cheese. It's just delicious because the radicchio is slightly charred and the cheese is all nice and melty, and everything has a slight smoked flavor. That's really tasty. There's an artichoke that they cook in the wood-burning oven that's sprinkled with flowers, and it comes with a delicious sauce that you dip your little pieces of artichoke in. That has been incredibly well received. There's a fried short rib terrine, which is a nice little molded triangular thing, and it comes with flowers sprinkled on the top, and it's like any beef rib thing. It's really rich and smoky and delicious, and I'm getting hungry.
I know, right? You know,
yeah.
And I can already tell if I go with you, I'm going to fill up before I even get to my main course.
Right. You'd fill up on bread if you went with me. I can tell you.
All right. So, assuming we get to the main course, what are we going to do there?
At Ox, you have the choice of 2 different kinds of ribeye. One, a traditional beef ribeye, which is fattier, and one ribeye from Uruguay, which is slightly more lean, more earthy. So if you get those, they will be perfectly cooked. They don't have any sauce or anything to distract you or to take away from the natural taste of the beef, but everything comes with chimichurri sauce. And so if you don't want to just taste the meat, you can go for the chimichurri sauce. They have some maitake mushrooms with smoked sea salt. If you're a vegetarian and you want to pretend like you're eating meat, just get those. I had a couple bites of those, and it was really like eating a steak. They were just so flavorful and rich, and the sea salt just lends a nice flavor. So those are really delicious.
So what are we pairing with this in terms of beverages? You know, what's the wine list look like, the beer list, cocktails?
The drink that they're most famous right now for is called the Dirty Grandma Agnes. We have several restaurants in Portland right now that are doing very well with drinks involving pickles.
Pickles?
Yes, pickles, because...
The Dirty Grandmother Agnes, and it involves pickles.
This is actually the second pickle drink that I've encountered in the last year.
I can't wait to see where this goes. Go on.
It's the whole farm-to-table thing. You do your own pickling. And so, of course, all these people have all these pickles. Well, what do you do with the pickle brine? And so several people have decided, oh, we're going to feature a drink that has pickle juice in it. So the Dirty Grandmother Agnes, which I believe is the grandmother of the owner's wife, this is her drink, and it's a martini that has vermouth, vodka, and pickle juice. And then it comes with a pickle stuck in it. I personally am not a big pickle person, but I had a sip, and it's quite delicious because it basically it's the dill flavor. It's not like a sweet pickle.
Right.
And so it's very refreshing. If you ever had a cucumber drink, you know, those can be kind of refreshing. Well, this is the same situation. Well,
now I'm intrigued because I love cucumber drinks, so I'll have to try that. Next time in Portland, I'm going to get the Dirty Grandmother Agnes.
Yes, but plan in advance if you're going to Ox.
All right, talk to me about dessert. What do we got?
The one dessert that they have become known for now is a warm hazelnut brown butter torte, which is a hunk of very rich, buttery, sort of cake, and then it has a really rich caramely sauce over the top. It comes with, it's not really peanut brittle, but it's some kind of brittle thing that they stick on the top, and it's got the most amazing texture. It's sort of crunchy and crumbly all at once. The whole creation is based on texture. It tastes delicious, but while you're eating it, you also admire, oh, this part's crunchy, this part's buttery, this part's creamy.
That sounds good. All right, so if you want to go to Greg Denton's Ox in Portland, it's at 2225 Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And you can check it out online. You can go to Ox, that's oxpdx.com. Jackie, you ready to play a game?
I am.
Okay, this game is called Out of the Frying Pan. Here's how we do it. I am going to ask you for your recommendations for somebody going to the city of Portland, and you're just going to tell me the first thing that pops into your head. You ready?
I think so.
All right. You do a lot of group dinners. Tell me, what is the best place to go if you have a private party in the city of Portland?
Well, we have a Peruvian restaurant that is called Andina, and they have many private dining rooms, which is really nice. They have an incredibly large menu of Peruvian food that comes in multiple sizes. It's in a really nice neighborhood, the Pearl District. Basically, it's one of the best received restaurants in town, and you can get a private dining room there. And the food's delicious.
Great. Tell me this, when you have out-of-town guests in, what restaurant do you like to take them to?
Well, one of my favorites is a place called Toro Bravo, which is a Spanish restaurant, which is actually quite close to Ox. Small tapas, incredibly large menu. You can get things that cost $2. You can get things that cost $19. Great atmosphere, good drinks, and it's a lot of fun.
So tell me, what place has the best wine list?
Probably Metro Vino, which I alluded to before, as far as that's where Greg Denton started. They probably have every wine you could think of, and you can get them all by the glass because they have a way of storing wine where it doesn't go flat. They can keep an amazing amount of bottles open at the same time. And so probably Metro Vino, and good food too. What
is your favorite barbecue joint?
Well, our most famous one here, which is probably most famous because it's the best, is called Podna's. The owner is from Texas, and so he does the dry rub style of barbecue. One night a week on Saturday, they have smoked prime rib, a little on the expensive side. It's like maybe $25, but you get a gigantic piece of smoked prime rib, mashed potatoes, salad. It's delicious.
Very good. Do you have a favorite breakfast spot?
Probably Tasty and Sons, which is from the same person that did Toro Bravo, John Gorham. It's breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's kind of Mediterranean as far as the inspiration, but then they'll have things like frittatas, donuts, burgers. Anyway, it's just a great place. Really well-cooked food, but a gigantic line all the time, a big line.
All right, you survived the frying pan. I'm impressed. I mean, you said you've hosted almost 120 dinners. It shows. Your knowledge, your expertise, beautiful. Tell me, Jackie Morrow of Russian Roulette, if people want to know more about the group or they want to follow you on social media, how can they do that?
What people need to do is they need to go directly to www.restaurantroulette.wordpress.com, and that's where you'll find our blog. You can find information on joining the group. Basically, everything we have is right there.
And everybody's welcome. Anybody who loves food and loves dining out in great company, they're all welcome to come, right?
Yes, everyone's welcome to come, and to come as often as they like.
Well, Jackie, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate you talking to us.
Well, it was nice of you to find me.
All right, I'm Seth Ressler. This has been Mystery Meat's Fine Dining Podcast. Couple of reminders. If you want to sign up for a Mystery Meat dinner party, just go to mysterymeat.org and click the big orange button to get your invitation. Also, if you enjoy this podcast, if you like it, do us a favor. Head over to iTunes and just leave a review there and tell other people how great this podcast is, because we think it's pretty good. And then finally, if you're a blogger and you want to come on the podcast, be a guest, and recommend a restaurant, we'd love to have you. Just go to mysterymeat.org and click the Contact Us link and send us a message, and we'll feature you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Mystery Meat's Fine Dining Podcast. You can find links to the websites mentioned in this episode at mysterymeat.org/podcast. Thank you for listening.